World War I. World War I, also known as the Great War, was one of the most devastating and transformative events in human history. It lasted from July 28, 1914 to November 11, 1918, involving many of the world's great powers. The war was primarily fought in Europe, but its effects rippled across the globe, reshaping borders, economies, and societies. Causes of the war. The causes of World War I are complex and multifaceted, rooted in a web of political, economic, and social tensions that had been building up for decades. Among the key factors were militarism. The late 19th and early 20th centuries saw an arms race, particularly between the major European powers. Nations were building up their armies and navies, fostering a culture of militarism where war was seen as a legitimate tool for resolving disputes. Alliances. Europe was divided into two major alliance blocs by 1914: the Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy, and the Triple Entente, France, Russia, and Britain. These alliances meant that a conflict involving one power could quickly drag its allies into war. Imperialism. European powers competed fiercely for colonies, particularly in Africa and Asia, fueling tensions. This scramble for imperial dominance contributed to diplomatic rivalries. Nationalism. Nationalist fervor was rising across Europe, particularly in regions like the Balkans, where ethnic groups sought independence from empires. Serbian nationalism, for example, was a direct challenge to Austria-Hungary's dominance in the region. Assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. The immediate spark for the war came on June 28, 1914, when Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary was assassinated in Sarajevo by Gavrilo Princip, a Bosnian Serb nationalist. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia for the assassination and, with Germany's backing, declared war on Serbia. This triggered a domino effect, as Russia mobilized in defense of Serbia, and Germany declared war on Russia and its ally France. Soon, Britain was pulled into the conflict due to its alliance with France and Belgium. Major players, Allied powers, led by France, Britain, Russia, and later joined by Italy, which switched sides from the Triple Alliance, Japan, and the United States in 1917. These countries fought primarily against the Central Powers. Central Powers, led by Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire, and later joined by Bulgaria. Warfare and technology. World War I was unlike any war that had come before it, primarily due to the use of industrialized warfare on an unprecedented scale. The war saw the introduction of trench warfare, where soldiers dug vast networks of trenches that stretched from the North Sea to the Swiss Alps. Life in the trenches was brutal, with soldiers enduring harsh conditions, disease, and constant fear of attack. New technologies changed the nature of warfare. Machine guns, capable of mowing down waves of soldiers, they made frontal assaults nearly impossible without massive casualties. Artillery. Large-scale bombardments could obliterate entire sections of the battlefield and were responsible for the majority of the war's casualties. Poison gas. Introduced by Germany in 1915, chemical weapons like chlorine and mustard gas caused horrifying injuries and deaths, although their effectiveness was limited by wind and gas masks. Tanks. First used by the British in 1916, tanks helped break the stalemate of trench warfare, although early models were slow and prone to mechanical failure. Airplanes. Initially used for reconnaissance, airplanes soon became a tool for aerial combat and bombing raids. Global impact and the home front. The war was a total war, meaning that it involved not just soldiers, but entire societies. Civilians faced food shortages, rationing, and bombing raids. In many countries, the war effort demanded full mobilization of the economy, leading to the conscription of men and women into factories and other industries critical to the war effort. The war also led to significant political changes. The Russian Empire, already weakened by internal strife, collapsed in 1917, leading to the Russian Revolution and the rise of the Bolsheviks, who eventually withdrew Russia from the war. This allowed Germany to focus its efforts on the Western Front, but by then the U.S. had entered the war, tipping the balance in favor of the Allies. the end of the war, and the Treaty of Versailles. By 1918, the Central Powers were exhausted and their governments were collapsing. The armistice of November 11, 1918, ended the fighting, but the formal peace treaty, the Treaty of Versailles, was signed on June 28, 1919. The treaty imposed harsh penalties on Germany, including significant territorial losses, military restrictions, and heavy reparations. The Treaty of Versailles is often cited as a contributing factor to the rise of Nazism in Germany and the eventual outbreak of World War II. The punitive measures it imposed on Germany, combined with the economic devastation caused by the war, created a fertile ground for extremist ideologies. Consequences of World War I. Human cost. The war caused the death of approximately 10 million soldiers and another 7 million civilians, with millions more wounded, traumatized, or displaced. The Spanish flu pandemic, which spread in the war's wake, killed millions more. Political changes. 4 major empires collapsed as a result of the war: the German, Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, and Russian empires. New nations emerged from the ashes of these empires, particularly in Eastern Europe and the Middle East. Social impact. The war led to significant social changes, including increased political and social rights for women who had played a vital role in the workforce during the war. Many European countries extended voting rights to women in the years after the conflict. Economic impact. The economies of Europe were shattered, and the enormous cost of the war set the stage for the Great Depression in the 1930s. The United States emerged from the war as a global economic power, while Europe faced massive debt and reconstruction challenges. The legacy of the Great War. World War I shattered the old world order and set the stage for the modern era. The war's aftermath saw the formation of the League of Nations, an international organization designed to prevent future conflicts, though it proved ineffective in stopping the rise of totalitarian regimes in the 1930s. The war's brutality and futility left a deep scar on the collective consciousness, influencing art, literature, and philosophy for decades. The war to end all wars, as it was optimistically called, instead laid the groundwork for an even more destructive conflict just 2 decades later: World War II.
Thank you for listening to History Videos 101. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us for more fascinating content.